Hello, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We are talking to Meghan Fife-Boswell. She is the CEO and owner of Omni Properties Group, which is a group within Keller Williams Realty. And she's going to share with us today a little bit about how she got started as a business owner and what she does, both professionally and personally, to make sure she thrives in business and in life. So thank you so much for being here, Meghan.
I'm super excited about it.
So I kind of want to start with, you have a super unique story on how you from being a young child, kind of always knowing that you wanted a business and creating it and taking off, and learned a lot along the way. So if you would share with us a little bit about just how you always knew, and then how some things fell into place for you to create this business.
Sure. So I remember when I turned 10, I asked my dad for a desk and a desk calendar and like a paperweight or something stupid, because I really like the idea of making decisions with my mind, not just my hands, right? So like I always knew that there was something to be said about people who had power, maybe even, that sat behind a desk. And so that evolved over my teenage years, high school years, where I realized, okay, I don't always have to be sitting behind a desk to make a difference, but I can sign up for every committee. I can, run for class office. I can, be the person who does the little bit of extra stuff for the volleyball team, whatever it is, just to kind of bring the group together, make sure that we're all on the same page. So I was not always the captain of everything I went to, right? I wasn't always the president of the class, but I always played some kind of leadership role. Looking back now, I recognize how each of those things that I've done, junior high and high school especially, set me up with the truth that every group of people needs leaders. Right. That everyone has the leadership personality deep inside of them to lead in their own way. And yet there's usually a leader who kind of draws that out in them, like our best teachers, maybe like coaches, pastors, anybody that you've put yourself around. You look up at them, and you're not just modeling them, they're encouraging and pulling things out of you, saying, hey, I believe you can do more. And I realized early on that I had people in my life who saw more in me, and then I wanted to do that for other people. Right. So that kind of was the beginning of me understanding that I could make a difference by being a leader.
That's also like an entrepreneurial spirit, where you're kind of going out and finding things that need to get done, or seeing maybe opportunities that are out there. And instead of waiting around or talking about it, you're actually going out and seeking it out and doing it.
Right. I'll try anything once, whether it's a food or some adventure. I've been skydiving, and, I want to go kite surfing soon. I'll try anything once. And if it seems to fit how I feel and I seem to enjoy it, maybe I think I'm good at it, then I'll keep going with it. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that in trying everything once, you've probably failed a few times.
I fail every day. Yeah.
And how do you bounce back from that? Do you ever live in failure, or how do you handle it?
Yeah, there's some failures I've repeated, right? So I didn't learn the lesson, and I literally repeat the same exact thing. Yeah. For me, that's when I start to get stuck in the failure. If it's the first time I failed at something, I usually bounce back pretty quick, because I'm like, oh, it's a new opportunity to learn. It's a new opportunity to change something. It's a new opportunity to see it differently, do it differently, think about it differently. And because I like variety and because I like change, and I do have the entrepreneur spirit, I'm always like, well, let's just try it this way, or do it this way, or whatever. Change it, make a decision and change it the next day, no big deal. When I repeat the same failure over and over, right, and I have to get honest with myself that, Meghan, you still have not learned your lesson, that's when I step back, and it's a little bit more difficult for me to keep pushing through. It's almost like I want to just throw in the towel on that thing and just go on to something completely new. And what I found is that the more I dig into that piece of failure that I seem to be stuck at and I can't learn from, once I am through it, everything opens up and explodes, and I see the world in a new light. I see everything with new eyes. It seems like there's a whole new world of possibilities. But sometimes we fail, and it just looks like we're standing at a brick wall, and we don't know how to get around.
Right, so it's like a breakthrough.
Yes, a breakthrough. It's a great word.
So tell me a little bit about, and I know your story, of course, but tell me a little bit about making the decision to be your own business, because a lot of people, and part of the reason why this was so important to me was I wanted to get people's stories out who have made the choice to go out, test their limits, put themselves to the test, and do it. And so, why did you decide to do that?
I typically lean toward wanting to stand out of the crowd a little bit. I like to stand alone. I like to believe things that other people sometimes don't necessarily believe. And there's a balance there between standing alone in what you believe is true for you, for your life, for your family, for your business, for whatever, and belonging and having this sense of community, the sense of having a tribe, the sense of having people who are all on the same page, going after the same mission,
the big why,
having the vision that everyone here is working toward this one thing. And yet we all, as humans, still want to stand alone. We want the community, we want the tribe, but we still want to be respected for the things we believe, for the things that we think. So when it came to making a decision to leave a corporate environment and move into a completely and totally entrepreneurial, owning my own business, writing my own paychecks, writing paychecks to other people, it was scary, of course. And thankfully, I had been given the opportunity through several really kind of awful events, actually, that I feel like God really kind of created in my life to be able to have the funds for about 6 months that I knew if I invested wisely, I would be able to survive for at least 6 months, right? Whether I failed in the business or I succeeded in the business, at least I would be okay for 6 months.
So you have had your own business team now for 4 years, right? Didn't you just celebrate your 4th year in real estate?
Yeah, 4 years in September.
So 4 years. So in that 4 years, I'm sure it's been a journey.
Yes.
Maybe look at when you first started out to where you are now 4 years later. Are there any pivotal moments for you that were big decision makers that just really you can look back over 4 years and point to it and say, that was something that happened, or a choice that I made, or whatever it may be, that really catapulted me forward?
So every time I've went to make an investment in myself when it comes to some kind of education or training, coaching, events, conferences, things like that, I mean, typically those things aren't cheap. Right. I mean, if you go online right now and you look for, the next women's conference, the next women's leadership conference, like, you're not looking at a $50 ticket. You're probably looking at $500 to $1,500, depending on what level you buy and who's holding the event and all these kinds of things. Well, it's not always true that the more expensive they are, the better they are. But you also know that there's a certain quality of person who's hosting the event or who's hosting the training or the education, that they can charge that much.
Because they're going to bring...
Because of who they are.
Right, and bring that much value to you.
They're going to bring that much value to you. Well, here's Meghan, growing up in Oklahoma City, doing her thing, not really surrounded by a lot of, big level thinkers. How am I going to get around them? Who am I to just, pick up the phone and call them or email them or message them on Facebook? And yet I knew from early on, being at least in this industry, that I had a lot of opportunity to connect with these people. I just had to go where they were, right?
And get around them.
I had to get around them. So some of the key decisions I've made over the past 4 years have been to invest the money to get around and just be in the same room, as crazy as that sounds, with these people that I respect, that I admire, that I want to model. Tony Robbins uses a phrase that proximity is power. And he says it often. Proximity is power. I didn't really understand what that meant until I started getting in proximity with people and being able to pick up the phone and talk to someone that I met at an event. They don't have to be well known. That's not what this is about. They have to know well.
Right.
Right. And so thankfully, some of the best decisions I've made over the past 4 years is networking, meeting people, being receptive and humble to learn from these people, recognizing I don't have it all together. You're a few years ahead of me. Some of them are light years ahead of me. I'm going to get in the same room as you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to respect and hear what you have to say. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it the exact same way. It does mean that I'm going to take what they say, filter it through who I am, and then get to work.
Use it for yourself.
Yep.
So that is a perfect, I think, set up for my next question, which is, I think relationships are really important as well. They're really important for me. And part of relationships is everyone is a little different. Personalities are different and energy is different. And so I'll share with everybody today, Meghan came in, and Meghan has a lot of energy. She's a very energetic person. And I'm clapping and I'm like, let's get the energy up in here. Let's get it going, because that energy though is so important. So talk to me a little bit about energy for you and how you use it and what you do with it. And because I know there's some people out there who feel it, right? We all feel like, man, I just popped out of bed today and I'm just at 10 today. I feel awesome. And then there's days that we don't.
Right.
So how do you use that in your life to your advantage?
So I could probably have a whole episode on just this topic, because there are 100% days I wake up and I don't want to get out of bed. Right. I mean, and some people might be surprised to hear that. It's just, where was my mind at when I went to sleep?
Sure.
Like when I'm laying in bed, am I dreading all the things I have to do today because there's so many and my calendar's so full? Or am I like excited because my calendar's so full? Right? It's a change in perspective. So the way that I harness energy, because I think you have to have energy to be able to accomplish something. And the interesting thing about energy is it's neither created or destroyed. Energy is just transmuted from one place to another, from one form to another. So there's no lack of energy. It is my lack of tapping into the energy that already exists.
So let's talk about, you're somebody who has a lot of big goals. And that's awesome, because you're a big thinker and you have big goals. When you started this, 4 years ago, did you have any idea that you'd be here now?
Yes and no. And the reason it's yes is, I had plans to build a business, not just to sell real estate, not just to be the only one working. Because if you know anything about the 4 quadrants of finance, basically, that Robert Kiyosaki talks about in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you have employee, you have self-employed, you have business owner, and then you have investor. I knew that I wanted to be self-employed when I got into real estate. Very quickly after joining real estate, especially with the company I'm with, Keller Williams, the model was be a business owner. Right. So I quickly fell in line. If the model is to be a business owner and not just be self-employed, that's what I'm going after. Well, to be a business owner means you have people working with and for you, and that you have systems that work whether you're watching them or not. So I knew that in 4 years I would be somewhat of a business owner. I had no idea at what production level or how much money I'd be making or how many people would be working with me originally. You start to put these plans in place and you start to fit pieces of the puzzle in, and you start to say, okay, this is possible. I found, and I've heard other successful people say, that you really can only see, like really solidly see, about 5 years out. Now, that means next year, when I'm looking 5 years out, it will be a little further. It's very difficult to see what life's going to be like in 20 years, because technology changes, society changes, markets change, everything changes, right? But can I see about 5 years out? Yeah, I can. And so I am actually pretty close to where I thought I was going to be. I thought I would be a little further, but that's that whole like learning patience and learning, okay, just because I have a goal and I don't hit it right on time doesn't mean I throw the whole goal out. It just means I adjust how I'm operating, what the deadline is now, and then what do I need to change so I don't miss that deadline next time.
What do you do for fun?
So I have been really purposeful actually for the past year about having fun. I've been taking every Saturday off. I went back in my calendar last week to see how long have I been taking every Saturday off. And that's pretty abnormal in this industry. In a lot of industries where you're your own boss and things like that.
When you're self-employed.
You're self-employed, a business owner, like you've got responsibilities and you always have your phone ringing and emails coming in. But I've been taking every Saturday off, and I mean, typically, like what I'm doing for fun is hanging out with my wife, Ashton. We're going out to Lake Hefner and walking. We'll go out to eat a lot. We like to eat out. We'll go hang out with my niece and nephew.
The reason I asked that is because you touched on it, is when you do take the plunge or you put yourself to work, or maybe it is part-time, but if you have maybe a full-time job and you start a business on the side, or you do take the plunge and you throw yourself all in, either way you're working 50, 60 hours a week. And I'm learning that's okay, as long as some of those hours or the other hours are going towards something that fills you back up, pours back into you, self-care, family, relationships.
And everyone has to figure out the thing that fills them up. Last night I was feeling kind of anxious about some stuff, and Ashton was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I need to get stuff done. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm serious, because that's one of my things.
It was bothering you.
It was bothering me. I'm like, I will not be able to sleep tonight unless I get these 3 things done. I've been putting them off. I need to get them done. I'm going to get them done, and then I'll sleep better. So
did you get them done?
I did. And so you just have to be purposeful about yourself. And that's where it's just about being self-aware.
Knowing yourself.
What you're doing with these conversations with these women is every single person is going to be so different. You do have to know yourself. It's like the first step in AA. It's just like acknowledging that you have a problem. Self-awareness is the first step to wisdom or maturity or whatever. If you don't know where you are, if you don't know what works or doesn't work for you now, you won't know what to do next. I mean, you'll try all these things and you'll be like, I don't know why they're not working. Well, because you don't know you.
Right.
You don't know you yet, right? We talk about our strengths. We talk about the things that we like, the things we don't like, you know? And when you know yourself, it's so much easier to enjoy your life, because then you know how to fill yourself back up.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because we started this conversation about you being young.
Yeah.
And you're like, I wanted a desk and some important things on it, because I knew I wanted like this power, or I wanted this control, or I wanted to like get things done.
Right.
And it's just who you are as a person. Like you just said, last night, I couldn't sleep until I got these 3 purposeful things done.
Yeah.
And so you had a desk as a child to be purposeful, and you're just a purposeful person.
I'm just a purposeful person.
And you just own it.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. In these conversations, a lot of the themes are the same.
Yeah.
And they're all about finding the thing that is who you are and what works for you, and just grabbing onto it and having some faith and following through with it and being honest with yourself and others, having a support system, and just not letting things go.
100%.
So I want to say thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it okay for some people to reach out to you if they have further questions?
I would love that.
Well, we'll make sure that your contact info is available, whichever way is best for you. I know it's different for everyone. And I guess my last question would be, if there's anything any advice that you would give to someone who's kind of on the edge, or is thinking that they need a boost, or they're just not sure, they're feeling uncertainty, like what would you say to that person who says, I really want to be my own business, or I am my own business, but I have something holding me back?
I would say that you need to get out a pen and paper or a voice recorder or something and just start talking. You don't have to talk to anyone. Don't ask for anyone else's opinion. Don't ask for anyone else's thoughts yet. Just organize your own thoughts about where you're at, about how you're feeling, about what you want, about what you don't want. Feel like open up that journal or that voice recorder for it to be a place where you can be the real you. No, not trying to be super positive, not trying to be anything, just like throw it all out there, then go back through and like find some themes, find some things that like, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now in life. This is where I'm at right now in life. Because in a year or in a month, that could be a different place. But if you're ever feeling stuck, and I think that's kind of the question. If you're ever feeling like, I just know there's something on the other side here. I'm just not seeing what it is. I'm not clear on what it is. If you're ever feeling stuck, get it out. Like just get all that stuff out.
Just dump it all.
Dump it all. Get it all out. Breathe. You know, take a minute to yourself. Organize through some of these things and say, if I had to only do one thing, right? Because there's 1,000 things you could do. There's 1,000 emails you could send. There's 1,000 people you could network with and connect with. There's 1,000 trainings you could go to. If I could only do one thing right now that would help me create clarity on my next steps for the next day, for the next week, for the next month, what would that one thing be? And then do everything in your power and outside of your power with divine help to get that one thing rolling. It's not always doing something. Maybe it's just a conversation you need to have with someone. That's usually it, honestly. Maybe it is something you need to do, but get all that out, organize it, find the one thing that you can do that you think would make everything else just a little bit easier and more clear. And I think you'll find that it's extremely beneficial exercise.
The clarity is really what gets you through it.
You need clarity. Clarity is power. It will help you go. It'll help you go there.